We talk a lot with NFL free agency coming up here. We talk a lot, or I know fans have brought up before the fact that why don't more Cowboys players recruit? When Dez Bryant the other day was, hanging out with DeAndre Hopkins, and then he's tweeting at Jalen Ramsey, I saw a lot of replies that were saying Dez recruits for the Cowboys harder than the Cowboys players do.
Mm-hmm.
It's not true. I'm not saying that Dez doesn't, do his best recruiting job trying to send people to the Cowboys. But the Cowboys players recruit. I promise you. There are limitations on, obviously, how they can publicly recruit.
Players?
Yes.
Can't players just do whatever they want? Players can't collude.
No, players cannot. You are still. For instance, I can't do anything. Brian can't do anything to influence the Cowboys, right? We could not say yesterday on the draft show, because we're on DallasCowboys.com, we could not say DeAndre Hopkins' name by name when talking about acquiring him. You can't talk about Earl. Back in the day, they couldn't talk about Earl Thomas like that. They just couldn't reference him as somebody to acquire when he was under contract. Same thing applies to some of these players. And so there was a really interesting article.
But hang on a second. Don't all these players sit there and tweet, "Come to Dallas, man"?
That's the thing, is that the openness, the directness of it, what it may be, because when you're talking about an official team capacity and you're talking about acquiring somebody, it can be different. Jeremy Fowler had a really good piece over at ESPN. Jeremy, the number one Fowler in broadcasting.
I disagree.
Had this headline over at ESPN: do players' sales pitch actually matter in NFL free agency? Tales of how they've landed. And it's really interesting just to look at how some of the deals have gotten done, how players choose to reach out. And he talks first about Russell Gage, the receiver, and how he was just taking out his trash last March. And his phone started ringing a couple days before free agency. He saw it, looked at it, picked it up, and he heard on the other end, "Hi, Russell, this is Tom Brady." And he's like, okay. And Brady pitched him on why he thought he'd be good in Tampa, why he wanted him to be there. And he was like, "This is great. I'll let my agents know what you said." Which, personally, if I was Tom Brady and I called and you went, "I'll pass it on to my agents," I'd be like, "Did this dude just blow me off?"
I know.
That's how I would feel about it.
Yes.
But he said he told his agents 2 days later or a week later, he was signed with the Buccaneers. And he said he got back in the house and he was like talking to his wife, and it was like, "Oh my gosh, that was Tom Brady. Tom Brady just called me." Tom Brady. Talks about Von Miller. Von Miller was one of the more highly recruited guys last offseason. And there was a lot of interest from Buffalo, the Cowboys, the Browns, and the Rams. And Bill's general manager, Brandon Beane, asked Von Miller's agent, Joby Branyan, if Josh Allen could call him. And it's a courtesy that, as Joby Branyan said, is not necessary, but was appreciated, and went, yeah, absolutely. Because Von Miller wanted to find out from a prominent veteran what it was really like to live in Buffalo, for example. So Josh Allen gets on the FaceTime, starts pitching him on it, sends him a text a couple days later. And one of the things that apparently stuck out to Von Miller was him including in the text, reminding him the quarterbacks he was going to get to chase down in the division. You get to go get Zach Wilson, Tua Tagovailoa, and Mac Jones. Like, this is a winnable division. We've got this. You can chase after these guys. That worked. You've got recently Cameron Jordan, his sort of flirtation with Derek Carr on Twitter, where he said, "I know you said adios to social media, Derek Carr. I know it may be too soon, but it's also Valentine's Day. Are you trying to swap out black and silver and fall in love with black and gold?" And when Cameron Jordan was asked about this for the article, he refers to it as dry contact. That's the sort of dry contact you have with guys, kind of flirtations, but like signaling, hey, there's some interest here. And Cowboys players, what you don't see, again, without identifying who, I can tell you there's several players every year that talk to other players who are under contract and try to convince them, hey, if you get free, you need to come here. This is why the Cowboys players are definitely on the recruiting pitch. I know everybody thinks Micah leads the charge, and he does, because Mike is very upfront and public about it. There are other guys on the team, other players just as prominent as Micah, who do it low-key, face-to-face, on phone calls.
I think you could say, let's say it's the Cowboys. You know, I'll bet you if Micah were to say to a player under contract, come to Dallas.
Mm-hmm.
I was just telling him to come to town. I would tell him to come play. We don't even play in Dallas.
Why
would he come to?
So twisted.
We don't even play in Dallas. We play in Arlington. we trade in Frisco. Coming to Dallas doesn't do a damn thing.
Well, and we'll get to more direct recruiting and how it can get you in trouble if you're a player.
If you're the Jets, hey, come to New York. We don't even play there, so I don't even know what the big deal is.
We all saw the very public Odell Beckham Jr. recruitment and how that played out, and they reference it here in this article, talking about when Micah Parsons said, OBJ, talk to me, let's do this. Everybody, every week at the Star, you remember it was given whatever Veterans Media Availability Day it was, we were standing out there getting ready to turn that audio around as fast as we could because we knew there'd be an OBJ question. We knew there'd be a comment from a Cowboys player saying, come to Dallas, and it'd be great. So we were trying to turn that around as fast as possible so G-Bag could play it right after locker room.
Yeah.
So we knew the recruitment was on there. Saquon Barkley sort of famously last season said, I don't have to tweet at him when it was brought up how the Cowboys were on the full court press. And one AFC executive for this said, what's crazy is teams went through all of that knowing Odell wasn't going to be able to play in 2022. But now the groundwork is laid where when he makes a decision, it's easy. So they've already put in the work that other teams who maybe didn't put on that full court press didn't have the advantage of. Now the under the table recruitment.
Love this.
Stephon Gilmore, just before the 2021 trade deadline, when he was about to get traded, there was a lot of talk he'd get traded or maybe he'd get released if they couldn't find a trade partner. He hadn't played in 2021 yet, and he got a note. It says a note. I don't know if this is an Instagram DM or what. It says it's a direct message, but he got a note from Patrick Mahomes, and he said the message was clear. I want to be your teammate. Gilmore knew he was being shopped ahead of a likely release. Hadn't expected to hear from Patrick Mahomes, though. He said, Mahomes gave me his number. We talked. The message was, me coming here is a great situation for me. It's always good to have those relationships around the league where you can talk ball or other things. Talked about how Aaron Rodgers reached out to him as well right before the trade to Carolina. And so you start getting hit up by these guys that are trying to get you there. One league executive told ESPN that upon learning that a player in a different case was recruiting one of his players on behalf of a mutual agent to facilitate a trade that was not given permission for, that the team was not looking to move on for, the executive then threatened to report the team to the league in case they were involved in this. And that's how serious they get with it. It's like, if we're not shopping this player, you need to back off. And these players, they're going to talk to us. In some cases, it's just because they're friends.
Yeah.
And you know, that's why I've always thought it was interesting, the dynamic of how aggressively can Trayvon talk about wanting to play with Stephon Diggs. And I don't know that the league would ever.
Well, they clearly aren't doing squat about it. They're being aggressive.
But I don't know how direct it is. I'm sure the league doesn't necessarily like it, but I don't know that they've broken any laws yet. But you remember Dante Bichette during the lockout, he had to quit.
Yeah.
He had to quit his job with the Blue Jays because he wasn't allowed to talk to his kid.
Oh, yeah. It was during the lockout, and he couldn't have any. He can have conversations with him, obviously, but he can't
talk ball.
He couldn't work with him. He couldn't go to a batting cage with him. Couldn't do anything like that.
That's his son.
That's stupid. That's stupid.
And
but I understand it because it's team to player. From a legal standpoint, I get it. Players can't tamper. This is where I think the NFL is wrong. You see this in the NBA all the time. Players they tamper like crazy. There's always tampering. Players can't collude, right? The labor cannot collude. It's not called collusion from a labor standpoint.
Right. But again, the issue being I can't even go on DallasCowboys.com when I'm on there and I can't say talk about trading for DeAndre Hopkins. Those are the sorts of limitations that they give. I like to go up to Exos, as I've told you guys before, the training facility here. The NFL has rules in place about team contact with Exos. You know, Nick Eatman, even though he is not with the team in any sort of personnel capacity, I think the NFL, we've talked about this before, tried to figure it out if Nick could go up there. I think NFL rules, if you read it as the most liberal interpretation of it that you can, says Nick Eatman's not allowed to go into Exos, even though he's just a writer for the team.
Thielen is being released. Tom Pelissero 4 minutes ago releasing two-time Pro Bowler Adam Thielen, one-time undrafted free agent from Minnesota State, who went on to catch 55 touchdown passes for his hometown team. Plenty left in the tank at age 32 and wants to land with a contender. Thank you to Tolo T. Rainey for the hookup.
This is perfect segue. because when we talk about Cowboys players recruiting, I can tell you with certainty there have been multiple players over the last several years who have gotten in Adam Thielen's ear and told him, hey, things don't work out there. You know, we'd love to have you over there. That's exactly what they said.
Maybe Michael Gallup was one of them. Take my spot.
Take my spot.
Replace me.
The final note here is a I think a funny one. JJ Watt talked to Jeremy Fowler for this piece and says he now knows how to access his Instagram direct messages. The requests, not the main folder.
Yeah.
Was not always the case, and he found out the hard way. About a year after Watt signed a 2-year, $31 million deal with the Cardinals in March 2021, he was playing around on his phone and for the first time realized he could sort his DMs from top followers, filtering out the thousands of messages that he gets from fans, well-wishers, everybody else. What he found was about 100 missed messages from players around the league who were trying to recruit him.
Whoa.
He said, I didn't even realize there were stars from other teams in my DMs. I had messages from last year saying, come play here. And I'm like, OS, I bet they're pissed.
JJ also said, remember, if you're hearing a rumor nowadays, it's because someone wants you to hear that rumor for one reason or another. Someone is purely guessing. If people want to keep something quiet, they absolutely can. It's 100% possible to do deals without any leaks in the NFL.